All right, good afternoon. Welcome to this Thursday, September 2nd meeting of the Missoula Board of County Commissioners. I'd like to call today's meeting to order. Missoula County acknowledges that this event takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the Republic for which it stands, nation, God, civil, justice for all. Are there any public announcements to be had today? Okay, if there are no public announcements, is there any public comment on items not on the agenda for folks online? And I don't know if we have any members of the public out there who might like to make public comment either at this point or later regarding one of our agenda items. If you want to make public comment, please use the raise hand function if you're in Microsoft Teams. If you're on the phone, when I call on those individuals who are callers, please unmute your phone hitting *6 and start talking, and please introduce yourself and give your name for the record. At this point, though, if there's any public comment on items under the jurisdiction of the Board of County Commissioners but not otherwise on the agenda, this is your moment. Okay, seeing none, our current claims list. This would be claims received as of August 19th through August 23rd by the Commissioner's Office. Total $1,077,356.46. We have 3 public hearings today, and in each of these instances, we will begin with a staff report or a staff presentation, or perhaps even a commissioner presentation, as the case may be. And at that point, after that is completed, we'll have an opportunity, if it's a land use decision, typically for the applicant or the applicant's representative, to say a few words. We'll open it up for public comment, close the public hearing, questions from the commission. The commission will then make a motion or a decision on how to move forward. We'll have discussion and vote on the item. So our first item, this is a resolution in support of housing here in Missoula County. And it's listed as Chris Lonsbury. I'm certainly going to allow him the opportunity, if he so wishes, to avail himself of it. But also Commissioner Josh Slotnick has been intimately involved in this. So I guess I would first hand it off to Commissioner Slotnick if you want to say a few words about this resolution.
Thanks a lot, Dave. I appreciate it. So I wanted to give a bit of background on where this is coming from. So way back when, the beginning of COVID time, when we were under an emergency declaration, we took some fairly bold action to get our unhoused population into a safe, sanitary, secure environment where health of individuals, health of environment could be paramount. We created the TSOS, and we did this under an emergency declaration. Things had to move fast. We were really concerned about COVID spreading within that population. Since then, we've learned, kind of accidentally, that when people are housed, unhoused folks are in such a sanctioned shelter, they actually move their lives forward. It isn't just about creating a safer space so we can keep COVID at bay. Putting COVID aside for a moment, which I get is very difficult to do, but conceptually, just do that for a moment. Folks who are in this situation actually got better to some degree. They got IDs, some got jobs, some just stopped living in fear of loss of their belongings or damage to their own beings. And living in this situation, the garbage that people create through life, their garbage they created through life, did not land on the ground or in the river. It landed in a garbage can and headed to the landfill. So what I'm saying here is having unhoused folks living in a sanctioned, controlled environment is really good for the environment, and it's really good for the people involved. So there's a lesson learned there. Now, flash forward, we're kind of used to COVID. The emergency declaration is gone, and we're contemplating really taking some big steps on how we work with our unhoused population. And this resolution is a policy foundation for future action, for future expenditures. Basically, what we're saying here is we are going to endeavor Doesn't mean we're going to accomplish this, but we are going to endeavor to provide some type of sanctioned shelter for anyone who's living outdoors in an unsanctioned space. And then once that has been accomplished, we will actively enforce to the best degree we can existing laws in terms of where a person can and can't be. So also acknowledging that this will not be 100% successful and that there might always be people living where they're not supposed to be. But if we are even moderately successful at this, we'll see our unhoused folks moving forward in their lives and see a high degree of environmental blight in places like under the Reserve Street Bridge begin to go away, because once creating an alternative, we've made space for ourselves to actually do real enforcement. Sorry for the long-winded answer.
No, that's great. So this is the kind of the policy context that we are going to move forward within.
Correct.
Chris, are you out there? Is there anything that you would like to add? Chris Lonsberry, Missoula County CAO.
So thanks, Commissioner Strohmeyer. I don't think there's anything I'd necessarily add to what Commissioner Slotnick just said, other than to perhaps echo it and say, I think this is that foundational piece as we continue to move forward and look to how do we address our unhoused population, both when it comes to the folks that we think of as traditionally unhoused, but also as we think of the folks currently, as we all know, with the market who are going through housing difficulties. This really gives us a broad policy statement to work under, and it also helps to set that foundation to make programs successful by showing that commitment, which is part of what folks need to know, is that there's going to be surety and commitment behind what we do.
Thanks, Chris. So this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this resolution? And first I'll open it up. Anyone in the room here in the Sophie Moe's room? Anyone online via Microsoft Teams? If so, go ahead and use the raise hand function. Jason McDonald, it looks like you said yes. Go ahead and introduce yourself and share with us your thoughts.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. No thoughts in particular. I just had a question going forward with this policy for unhoused populations. I'm kind of my concern or question is the policy cognizant of the fact that if this program is successful, even moderately so, that it will attract unhoused populations from regions of the country or even close by where it is unsuccessful, because this will be the place to be to come get that sort of help? And how might that policy be cognizant of that and incorporate it?
Yeah, I think that falls into something that we've heard not infrequently. It's the build it and they will come question. And I think the reality is we have an unhoused population right now in our midst, and we need to take action to address that concern. Will some folks arrive here because of services? Maybe some. I think what we've seen in our temporary safe outdoor shelter here is that the vast majority, preponderance of folks who are utilizing that service are folks who've been in Missoula for a number of years, some period of time. So they're not just drifting here to avail themselves of good services, but the reality is we have a population that we need to address the needs of right now. And I'm certainly of the mind that we ought not to be paralyzed in concern over what might happen in the future and not address the needs that we're seeing right now. Commissioner Slotnick.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. You said that really well. All I would add to it was a bit of discussion on the enforcement piece. If we look to the not so far away community of Boise, there was an attempt at enforcement there that was stopped, that was blocked in the courts as folks were arrested for basically camping in places they weren't supposed to camp on public land. And there was no alternative place to go. And the court said that Boise couldn't do that. What we're doing here is hopefully setting ourselves up so we can really achieve two goals, really help getting people in a spot where they can move their own lives forward and be in a safe and secure situation, and allow us the space to do enforcement when people are where they're not supposed to be and creating the environmental blight that no one wants to see. So if this works out, we get both sides of it. What gentleman was asking about, I'm inferring was, well, couldn't you just do enforcement? Because if we just enforce this and lock everybody up, well, then nobody's going to come here. Well, beyond the moral question and the constitutional question, we can't do that. We're not going to do that.
Thank you. Other public comment? Anyone online who would like to comment? Use the raise hand function if possible. All right.
So can we keep this open for a week or so? Then people have time to comment and speak to it.
Certainly, we do not need to take action on this today. So if we're all good with that. But while we're, yeah, John, we're getting the thumbs up from the Deputy County Attorney here, John Hart. So our plan, just so everyone knows, is we are not going to take action on this item today. We will keep the public hearing open and
for a week or so, or actually look towards Violet. When would be next best?
So the next week's public meeting is very full. I would say our best bet would probably be the public meeting on the 23rd.
Chris,
go ahead.
what do you think of that? Keeping this open through September 23rd. I don't think there's anything time sensitive other than the fact that this is kind of a framework document and we want to get it in place relatively soon. Chris? And you're muted, Chris, if you're trying to speak.
So I'm sorry, Commissioner Strohmeyer, could you repeat that? I had some audio issue.
Yeah, we are contemplating not taking action on this today, but keeping it open for a couple weeks, perhaps till September 23rd, to give the public more opportunity to see this, review it, and offer comment. I guess I'm of the mind there's nothing time sensitive about this, other than we probably want to get this in place to set the stage for actual actions that we're going to be taking. But do you see any issues with keeping this open until the 23rd?
No, commissioners, and I actually think that will align nicely. As you know, we're going to be discussing our ARPA budget next week at your public meeting on the 9th, and then also on the 23rd. Some of that funding is directed specifically around issues for housing and homelessness, and so I actually think it would pair well.
Great, thanks.
Okay, well, before we leave today, are there any other folks who would like to comment on this? Is there anyone on the phone? Not sure. Violet, do we have any callers today? We do not. Anyone else out there online who would like to comment? Or in the room? I don't want to deny anyone in this packed house the opportunity to comment. Okay. Well, thanks, everyone. We will reconvene on this particular public hearing item on September 23rd, and likely we'll take action then. Our second item is a continuation of a public hearing on a justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion resolution. Jamar, is there anything that you would like to recap for us? I'll give you the opportunity to come on up here. And we are contemplating a revised version of what we had originally rolled out. I think this might even be version 4 or some such thing. So a number of edits and modifications have been made following hearing from members of the public. So with that, Jamar, do you want to bring us up to speed?
Sure. Good afternoon, commissioners. Good afternoon, everyone joining. My name is Jamar Galbraith, he, him pronouns. And I am really honored to be able to bring to you the resolution.
And Jamar is our equity coordinator for Missoula County.
I hope so. I think it is. It's green.
It is.
Okay, awesome. I'll just talk this way into a little more. We have come a very long way since we first began these discussions and developing the resolution back in July. And I'm just really appreciative of the public comments that we've gotten, the work of our internal communications team, and so many other partners that have helped us to get to the draft of the resolution that we have before you now. Since we had our last meeting a couple of weeks ago on this, we haven't had any updates or any further public comments. I would just like to reiterate that this is putting our commitment down in writing by way of resolution helps us to articulate how we would like to proceed and to be able to start developing the blueprint to more sustainable solutions to this process that we're calling justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. It helps us to refine this process in addition to that, and it allows us the ability to start developing really intentional strategies in order to move our work forward. And I don't have any further updates or anything like that, but I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Jamar. So like I say, this is a continuation of a public hearing that we have already opened. So we will continue with public comment. Is there any public comment on version 4 of the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Resolution? Any public comment? Okay. Oh, do we have a comment? Oh, Jason McDonald.
Yes, my only comment is that I vehemently oppose it.
Is there a reason that you'd like to give, Jason?
Oh, I gave some comments before, just the justice, whatever, diversity, equity, inclusion, they end up being policies based around race, which makes them inherently racist. And I mean, that's something you either see for yourself or you don't. So I can't really, I'm not going to change any minds here. I'm just saying what I think or what I believe.
Okay, thanks, Mr. McDonald. Additional public comment on version 4 of this resolution? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any questions, Commissioner Slotnick, or comments?
It's just a comment, really, and I want to say thanks to Jamar for shepherding this through quite a process. A lot of people worked on this, and a lot of committees and groups and folks out in the community, people in city and county government. It was quite a process involving a lot of people to bring us to where we are, and I just want to say thanks to that.
Yeah, likewise. Even under the best of circumstances, it's difficult pulling together a document with a broad range of constituencies and in a committee format. And I think the public process, as protracted as it's been, has put together a solid piece of work here that we can use moving forward from a policy standpoint. So thank you, Jamar, and everyone who played a role in that. Josh.
Yeah, Sid, one other thing. I just want to I've worked off a little shorthand of this because there's a lot of words in this resolution. It's pretty meaty about really what this commits us to doing, just for folks who aren't intimately involved. It initially, I say primarily, it commits us to trying. We have not in the past really had any intentional efforts towards justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And the primary effort here is we are going to try. We're going to commit ourselves to working with our partners. We're going to commit ourselves to creating a roadmap towards equity. Specifically, we're going to create a JEDI advisory board and a plan. And built into this plan is a lot of opportunity for public comment. So people will continue to be involved. This is the beginning. This is not the end of times when people could comment. And I really hope Mr. McDonald comments some more so we can incorporate some of his concerns into future work. We're going to attempt to make sure that our staff, our boards, our councils, commissions, et cetera, reflect the diversity that is in Missoula County right now. And we're going to set ourselves up with some benchmarks and some assessment tools so we know where we are as we move forward and we can tell how we're doing. And we're going to continue to engage with the community as we move along. So that's really, in a nutshell, what we're committing ourselves to. And hopefully I didn't miss, there's a lot there, so I know I missed things. I just kind of wanted to grab a shorthand of it just to let people know where we are. I'm trying to do this in 3 or 4 minutes of something that was many, many pages long, but it's there for you to read. This is just the crisp version.
Thanks, Josh. And this resolution is not to say that we have been completely blind to or tone deaf to issues of diversity, justice, equity, and inclusion. But it provides that, it memorializes in writing the framework by which we are committing ourselves as Missoula County government to move forward in the future. I look around the Sophie Moise room, whether it's the name Sophie Moise of this room or some of the symbols in this room, as manifestations of our commitment to this already. Just to my left up here on the dais is the flag of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes of the Flathead Nation. And that is here intentionally as recognition that, as we stated in the land acknowledgement, this is the traditional homelands, the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. And that's something important to keep in the forefront of our thinking, that history did not begin at the inception or the incorporation of the city of Missoula, that there is deep history in this place and connections to the people who have lived here for millennia and who are still here and call this place home. So it's a matter of kind of pulling together those things that we've done already and setting the bar a good bit higher as far as where we need to go in the future. So with that, we've had a public hearing. We've had some discussion among the commission. Commissioner Slotnick, would you like to make a motion?
I would request the board approve and sign a resolution committing Missoula County to the principles of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in partnership with the city of Missoula.
I will second that motion. Any further discussion among the commission on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that is adopted. Thank you, Jamar.
Thank you very much, commissioners. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day.
Yeah, and please do pass on our thanks, Jamar, to everyone who helped get us to where we are today. Our third and final public hearing today is on the Rowan Street buildings for lease or rent proposal, and we will begin with a staff report from Nick Xanatos.
Thank you, Dave. Let me pull up my notes here. Let me get going. So this is a buildings for lease or rent proposal on Rowan Street. Let's start with some background on the project location. So we are located at the intersection of Highway 93 South and Rowan Street. For context, we have the Rowan Street Park and Ride adjacent here in the southeast corner. Parcel is undeveloped. The properties to the northwest and south are also undeveloped. And then we have Highway 93 South to the east. The parcel is unzoned and is designated as community crossroads by the Lolo Regional Plan. Getting into the project proposal, in total, the project would be 13 storage unit buildings with 744 total units and one office/shop. The applicant is proposing to break the project into two phases. Phase 1 is outlined in red. That would include buildings 1 through 8, and that would be 466 units and an office/shop attached to building number 7. And then during this time, the phase 2 area would be used as outdoor parking until phase 2 begins. And then once phase 2 begins, it would include buildings 9 through 13 and 278 units. Project was sent to adjacent property owners within 300 feet. We did not receive any public comment from adjacent property owners or from other members of the public. The proposal was sent out to agencies across Missoula County for comment. The Missoula County Building Division gave some feedback to the applicant based off of IBC building code requirements. The health department commented that the project would require sanitation review. The Missoula Rural Fire Department stated that they would require a 10,000-gallon cistern for fire protection, and they also helped clarify fire apparatus access standards throughout the development. The Missoula County Floodplain Administrator commented that the area could possibly have high groundwater during times of flooding, so they would recommend no basements in the office/shop. And last, the Montana Department of Transportation commented that they do hear complaints about the Rowan Street Highway 93 South intersection, specifically making a left-hand turn out of this intersection. And while MDOT is studying this corridor, they do not have any program changes at this time for this intersection. Buildings for lease or rent projects are reviewed with the criteria that you see here on the screen. And I'm going to go through some of the more important review aspects that we evaluated during this staff analysis. Starting with impacts on the physical environment, there is no FEMA floodplain on the property. The property is also outside of the air stagnation zone. The applicants are proposing an on-site stormwater retention facility sized to accommodate a 100-year event. We are recommending a condition of approval that does require a grading and drainage review at the time of permitting, and this would ensure that the grading and drainage is up to Public Works Manual standards. Next is impacts on the human population. This is the section where we look for growth policy compliance. So as stated, this is designated as community crossroads under the Lolo Regional Plan. That designation calls for primarily residential, but does include some amounts of commercial usage at major crossroads. These uses should be designed to fit into the natural and rural environment. They also call for these uses to serve the needs of local residents. They don't intend for these uses to draw in tourist or commuter traffic. Then based off of these principles and the Lolo Regional Plan, the project is deemed not in substantial compliance with the type of commercial activity. I do want to note that we have worked with the applicants on a landscaping condition not found in the staff report if it is deemed that this impact needs to be mitigated further. Addressing access to the site. So the applicants did perform a trip generation study, and they calculated about 12 morning trips and 14 evening trips would be entering the development. They were not able to distinguish between left and right hand turns onto Highway 93 South. And then just restating MDOT's comment that they do hear complaints about this intersection making a left-hand turn onto 93 South, but there are no program changes at this time. I believe Glenn Cameron from MDOT is online today, so if we do have questions for him after the staff report, I think he'd be willing to help us out with that. In summary, CAPS has recommended approval with the following conditions. The first is that the buildings shall be in substantial compliance with the plan submitted in the application packet. Second is that the applicant shall install a 10,000 gallon cistern to supply water for fire protection. And last is the grading and drainage plan. A grading and drainage plan shall be needed at the time of permitting and shall be reviewed by Public Works. And I will turn it over to you, Commissioners. That was the short summary.
Thank you, Nick. Does the applicant or applicant's representative want to speak to this?
Hi, thanks, Commissioners. This is Danny with IMEG, representing the applicants as the design consultant. I also want to thank Nick for providing the staff report and the recommendation from approval. His communication through the process was really nice, and it helped get to where we are today in a timely manner, so I appreciate that. I don't have a whole lot to add. Nick did a good job painting a picture of the project, but I do want to note that that the design and material qualities is the applicant's utmost importance. They plan to have very high quality buildings, ones that actually exceed the standard warranties that you would see in a storage unit. They plan to pave the entire project, which technically this area of the county wouldn't require pavement and could be approved as gravel. So that's a nice amenity that they want to add. They've thought about ingress and egress into their development and the safety factors. They want to install a dual entry and exit gate to avoid traffic conflicts in and out of the development. And then also, like Nick briefly mentioned, they do want to plant trees around the perimeter just to help soften the contrast with the area. Right now, it's all currently undeveloped, and we know that 744 storage units is a lot on an area that's undeveloped. Well, I should say direct adjacent neighboring is undeveloped, but recently the neighbor to the north and west has planted trees along the perimeter of his property, and our applicants want to match what he's done and do the rest of their surrounding perimeter. They've talked to the neighbor. And then also the direct neighbor to the south is in works for developing a brewery / food truck, it sounds like, and we've been communicating with them, and they're fine with our plan to plant trees along the perimeter. So like I said, we know this is going to be a large contrast, 744 units on undeveloped land, but these amenities that the client wants to provide, we hope soften that contrast and make for a really nice project. The Lolo Regional Plan really has identified this area, this Rowan Street and Highway 93 area, as it's been identified as a place that will see increased development, specifically commercial use and mixed residential. It does say primary residential, but being this close to the access to the highway, you would anticipate a lot of commercial use wanting to be there. So I would anticipate more in the future. It'll be a nice buffer between the residential neighborhoods you see to the west and then the main arterial corridor of Highway 93. So we think it's a good place for it. Well, that's about all I have. Thank you again, and I'll turn it back to you asking for your vote of approval. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone either in the Sophie Moe's room or online who would like to comment on this proposal? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I'd like to ask Glenn Cameron a question if he's available.
Yes, hello,
Hey.
This is Glenn.
Hey, Glenn, thanks for being here. So, as was noted, this would increase traffic on the intersection between Rowan and Highway 93, and making a left turn is pretty tough now. Could be real tough for folks if we add 7 more trips. And this is the first I've heard of the brewery food truck to the south. What would MDT's process be for determining if something had to be changed at this intersection or added, given there's going to be more people driving through it to ensure safety?
Yeah, well, Josh, it's a little bit of a tough one because these developments, this storage unit and the other proposal are both accessing Rowan Road, which is a county maintained road. And then they access Old 93, through the intersection with Old 93 and then out to Highway 93 where our jurisdiction is. So from an MDT standpoint, there's not a lot we can do on our own without some help from you folks in the county. If you feel that you need to impose a traffic study or whatnot upon these developments, MDT would be happy to review that in conjunction with the county and provide any recommendations. I can tell you that with the storage units, we don't see a lot of traffic with those. And most of the traffic is outside of any peak hour traffic. It's usually early mornings or late evenings, and it's pretty well spread out. So even when we look at these larger storage facilities that we have around Missoula County, we just don't see a lot of traffic impact from those.
Thanks.
Yeah, and as far as the future of that intersection, MDT is looking at the 93 corridor. We're looking at a lot of safety issues with 93 corridor, and within that, we are looking at these intersections specifically between Lolo and Florence. And we will also be conducting a speed study on the 93 corridor next year. So there are going to be some changes. They will just be happening over a period of several years.
So this is a question for Glenn or for John Hart, or not, maybe just Glenn. So let's say, and we're speaking in the hypothetical here, the property to the south comes to us and says, oh, we want to do a brewery and a food truck, and it sounds like it'd be great for the economy of the area and the residents would love it, but it certainly would bring on more traffic. What could we do? I'm not sure on process. Do we ask or maybe Tim could answer, or Nick, what do we do to make sure that the safety situation is not just studied, but acted upon if indeed new development happens here that's going to bring a lot more people through this intersection?
Would anyone like to take a stab at that? I think, Josh, you listed about everyone on the
I
call
know,
here.
I kept looking around and everybody's
I
like,
go
not
for
me,
it.
not me. So
Blank
there you go.
stares behind masks. Nick.
The brave Nick.
So specifically the project to the south, because they would not be triggering the BFLR regs that we have here today. They would just apply for a building permit and we would do our normal review process, which unfortunately would not capture any like trip generation study where we couldn't condition any offsite study because it's not a process that accounts for that like a subdivision or an RV park or something like that would. So unfortunately, in that specific scenario, while they will be adding to the impact of the land, we can't condition anything for that.
So is Glenn, if I understood it right, Glenn, you were saying it's more on us, and Nick is saying we can't do anything.
Well, and for that specific project, we can't condition anything based off of the development of the brewery. But we could.
So if a brewery is developed, and this is irrespective of the project before us today, which I don't have any problems with. Let's say there is a brewery in the future, a whole lot more activity at this intersection. Doesn't sound like we just sort of let her rip until MDT says there's a problem.
Glenn, do you want to chime in here? At what point can we make an ask of the Montana Department of Transportation to do some additional analysis? Because it is a bit of death by 1,000 cuts. And at some point, cumulatively, we're going to have a real problem. And is it only after the fact that we can then take a hard look at it?
Should we do this proactively?
Glenn?
Yeah. So this is Glenn with MDT. We just don't have any permitting authority for either of these developments. And so there's nothing that we don't have anything. We don't have we're not approving a permit, so we can't require any sort of traffic analysis. So, and it sounds like you guys are in a tough spot, but if you guys can require some type of traffic analysis, we would, MDT would definitely take a look at that and see if there's.
Glenn, let me interrupt here. So I at least from my perspective, I'm less. Well, I am concerned. In a perfect world, we would have some regulatory triggers that would kick in and require some additional traffic study or analysis. But I guess just from the standpoint of your facility on Highway 93 at this intersection, which already is a point of concern by many of our constituents, and will only increasingly become more so as additional development happens in this area. At what point does MDT recognize there's an issue here that needs to be mitigated in some way? And does Missoula County maybe play a role in helping make that ask to MDT to take a hard look at this intersection in particular? Or is that already going to take place as part of some of your traffic analysis that's scheduled for the future?
Yeah, to answer that, I believe it is already going to take place and it is in the works. And from my standpoint and conversations I've had, I still think it would be a very good idea that the Missoula County Commissioners maybe send a letter to MDT just requesting that we do look at this intersection and study this intersection, and that there is ongoing growth in this area, and it's a big concern.
Oh, thanks for the guidance, Glenn. That's helpful. We can do that.
Yeah, we know how to write letters. Yeah. So okay.
Thanks for that, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn. That's
thanks, Nick.
Helpful.
Thank you.
Any other comment or discussion? I guess the only thing I would say is to be frank, these sorts of storage units are one of my least favorite types of development on the landscape, and I'm encouraged to hear that you will be taking efforts to or pursuing efforts to make it as nice as possible, because we've seen plenty of not nice ones out there. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks.
Motion?
Yes.
Nick, do you have a motion language for us?
I do. Let me pull it up here.
All right, I would move that the Rowan Street Buildings for Lease or Rent project on parcel TRD of COS 6644 as represented in the applicant packet be approved based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law found in the staff report, subject to conditions of approval. Oh, sorry, I see Tim Worley's hand up.
Tim,
Uh-oh.
oh, it's a late
Pause
breaking.
that. Pause that.
Sorry for that. Tim Worley with CAPS. I think Nick actually had a recommendation for capturing what Danny was talking about regarding the landscaping piece. So just, and I'm not sure that that was brought up originally, so.
Thanks. Yeah, I did note it, but I guess we did not confirm if we wanted to, if you wanted to add that condition in place, because it was not in the staff report, but it was something that we talked about post BCC update to potentially mitigate the impacts of.
Do you have some
Vigilate.
specific language?
I do. It's actually on the next slide here.
Oh, thanks for catching that.
Sorry.
Tim.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim.
And Danny with IMEG, are you all okay with that condition?
Yes, Commissioner, thank you. This is Danny with IMEG. You know, Nick and I discussed this after the BCC update on Monday, like he just said, and we are fine with the landscaping condition. You know, we understand that it'll be reviewed by the department as the buildings are being built out. And like I mentioned in my, you know, brief update, that there are already trees planted, so we don't want to double plant trees. So as long as there's just some common sense within that condition there that will finish out the perimeter landscaping, we're certainly happy with it.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of the motion,
I can add this condition.
yeah,
Thank you.
subject to conditions of approval, including,
There we go. Okay, subject to conditions of approval, including
what we just saw.
the proposed development shall include a landscaping plan that shows tree planting space no more than 50 feet apart along the entire perimeter of the parcel. All trees shall be served by adequate irrigation, which shall be identified on the submitted landscaping plan. Installation of the required landscaping features shall be completed prior to final building permit inspections. Verification of this condition will occur through a CAPS final inspection at the time of permitting.
That motion is in order. I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is
Thanks, everybody.
approved.
Thanks for catching that, Tim.
Thanks, Danny.
Thank you. Thank you very much, commissioners. Have a good afternoon.
Yep, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Is there any other business to come before the commission at this time? Seeing none, we'll be adjourned.